My parent named me Alma. The storyline is In Search for True Name. In the beginning, before maps were drawn and before mirrors learned to flatter, people believed that everything possessed a true name. Not the name given by parents, nor the one etched onto certificates, but a deeper sound, an invisible architecture of syllables that held the structure of a thing together. To know the true name of a river was to understand its current before stepping in. To know the true name of another person was to see the shape of their fears, their hungers, their unspoken loves. And to know one's own true name, so the old stories insisted, was to become free. Aaron grew up hearing these stories from his grandmother, who claimed that once, long ago, the world had spoken clearly. Reality is layered, she would whisper as rain threaded the air outside their window. What we see is only the surface. Underneath are patterns. Underneath the patterns are principles. And under those principles are names. Aaron did not fully understand her words, but he felt their gravity. He would stare at his reflection and wonder if Aaron was merely a convenience of language, what lay beneath. The search for his true name began on the day he realized how many different selves he carried. At school, he was quiet, a background figure drifting between louder personalities. At home, he was attentive, careful not to trouble his weary parents. Among friends, he learned to laugh in rehearsed bursts. Each setting called him by the same given name, yet each demanded a different version of him. Which one is real? He asked himself one evening, sitting alone in the park. A psychology book he had borrowed from the library offered one explanation. Identity is constructed. The self is not a fixed core, but a fluid negotiation between memory, perception, and social expectation. The brain, it explained, is a pattern recognition machine. It builds a narrative called I to unify scattered experiences. If that were true, then perhaps there was no hidden syllable waiting to be uncovered, only a story constantly rewritten. Yet the idea unsettled him. If the self were only a story, who was the storyteller? Aaron began keeping a journal. He wrote down his reactions to small events. Irritation at a classmate's joke, envy at another's success, tenderness when he saw his mother asleep at the kitchen table. He noticed contradictions. He could be generous and selfish within the same hour. He could believe in honesty, yet conceal uncomfortable truths. The journal revealed an uncomfortable reality. The self was less like a solid stone and more like a parliament of voices. Neuroscience suggested something similar. Different neural networks lit up for fear, reward, empathy, and reasoning. No single region governed absolutely. Instead, they competed and cooperated in shifting alliances. Perhaps the true name was not a single word, but a dynamic equation. One autumn afternoon, Aaron visited his grandmother, now frail but bright-eyed. He told her about his journal and his confusion. She listened without interruption. When he finished, she said, "You are searching for a noun when you might be a verb." He frowned. "A noun sits still," she explained. "A verb is an action unfolding in time. Reality itself may not be made of things, but of processes. The river is not water alone, it is flowing. A flame is not wood alone, it is burning. Why should you be any different?" Her words resonated with something he had read about physics. At the smallest scales, matter dissolves into vibrating fields and probabilities. Particles are less like marbles and more like events. Stability emerges from constant motion. If reality at its foundation was movement, then perhaps identity was not a hidden object, but a pattern sustained across change. Still, Aaron longed for certainty. He wanted a moment of revelation, a whisper from the depths announcing, "This is who you are." He sought solitude in the hills beyond the city, where the horizon widened and human noise thinned. There, beneath a vault of indifferent stars, he confronted the scale of existence. The universe was nearly 14 billion years old. His life, by comparison, was a flicker. The atoms composing his body had once resided in ancient stars. His breath mingled with air exhaled by forests and strangers alike. The boundaries he cherished, mine and not mine, blurred under this perspective. Biology taught that every 7 to 10 years, most of the cells in his body would be replaced. Memory altered itself each time it was recalled. Even the ground beneath him drifted on tectonic plates. If everything changed, what could a true name possibly anchor? Exhausted from hiking, Aaron slept beneath the open sky. He dreamed of standing in a vast library where books rearranged themselves continuously. Titles shifted. Pages rewrote their own paragraphs. In the center stood a mirror framed in silver. He approached and saw not his reflection but a swarm of images. Himself as a child clutching a toy. Himself arguing angrily. Himself comforting a friend. Himself alone, uncertain. The images overlapped until they formed a shimmering composite. A voice, not external, yet not entirely his own, spoke. You seek a true name as if it were a password. But a name is a compression. It reduces complexity to a sound. You are not reducible. Then there is no truth? He asked. There is truth, the voice replied, but it is relational. A wave has meaning only within the ocean. A self has meaning only within a network of other selves. He awoke before dawn, the dream dissolving, yet its insight lingering. Back in the city, Aaron began observing people more closely. He watched a vendor carefully arrange fruit, transforming routine into ritual. He saw a tired commuter surrender her seat to an elderly man. He witnessed arguments flare and subside. Like summer storms, each person carried invisible histories shaping visible behavior. Trauma, aspiration, culture, memory, all braided into singular expressions. Language labeled them with names, professions, roles. Yet these labels skimmed the surface. He realized that if he demanded a singular true name for himself, he would have to grant the same to others. But others resisted simplification. How then could he expect to compress his own multiplicity into one syllable? Months passed. Aaron's search grew quieter. Instead of chasing revelation, he cultivated attention. He practiced noticing the impulse before action, the split second where choice emerged. In that gap, he sensed a peculiar freedom. Philosophers debated whether free will truly existed or whether every decision arose inevitably from prior causes. Brain scans revealed neural activity preceding conscious awareness of choice. Yet even if determinism governed the machinery, experience still unfolded as deliberation. Perhaps freedom was not the absence of causation, but the capacity to align with values one endorsed upon reflection. And values, he saw, formed a more stable thread than moods or roles. Compassion, curiosity, integrity. These qualities recurred across contexts. They were not always dominant, but when he acted in harmony with them, he felt integrated. Was his true name a constellation of chosen principles? One winter evening, his grandmother passed away. At her bedside, he felt grief like a physical weight. Her stories, her laughter, her gentle admonitions, all now confined to memory. During the funeral, relatives spoke her name repeatedly, as if repetition could anchor her presence. Yet Aaron understood that the syllables were placeholders for something immeasurably richer. Decades of kindness, resilience through hardship, the way her eyes brightened at small joys. Her true name, if such existed, was not pronounceable. It was the pattern of her life woven through countless interactions. Standing there, Aaron felt a shift. He no longer sought a hidden word. Instead, he asked, "What pattern am I weaving?" He returned to the hills in spring. The landscape had changed subtly, new growth where frost had once settled. He sat beneath a budding tree and closed his eyes. He traced his breath inward. Inhale, oxygen fueling cells, sustaining processes older than humanity. Exhale, carbon dioxide returning to the atmosphere, feeding plants. Exchange without ownership. In that rhythm, he sensed continuity, not as static identity, but as participation. He was a node in vast interlocking systems, ecological, social, cosmic. His thoughts emerge from neural networks shaped by evolution and experience. His choices influenced others in ripples he might never witness. The search for a true name dissolved into a deeper inquiry: how to live responsibly within this web. As twilight descended, a realization crystallized, not as a voice, nor as a word, but as understanding. A true name is not discovered, it is enacted. Each decision, however small, contributes a syllable. Each act of kindness or cruelty alters the pronunciation. Identity is the cumulative echo of behavior across time. Reality concepts he had studied, process over substance, relational existence, emergent patterns, converged into clarity. The self is an emergent property of interactions, stabilized by memory and intention. It is neither illusion nor immutable core, but a dynamic pattern capable of reflection. To seek a final, unchanging name was to misunderstand the nature of living systems. Stability arises not from rigidity, but from adaptive coherence. He was the relationships that shaped and were shaped by him. He was the ongoing verb of becoming. Sometimes, walking beneath the night sky, he would remember his grandmother's words about layers of reality. He understood now that beneath appearances lay patterns, beneath patterns lay principles, but beneath principles lay not fixed names, only deeper participation. The universe did not whisper a secret syllable into his ear. Instead, it offered a continuous invitation to attend, to choose, to weave. And in accepting that invitation, Aaron found something truer than a name. He found alignment. He found responsibility. He found peace in motion. For in the end, the search for true names was never about uncovering a hidden word buried beneath the self. It was about recognizing that reality itself is an unfolding conversation, and that each of us,